Okay, guys, what's up?
What is going on today, Brendan?
Today we're talking mindset, things that happen to you, the way you react back at it. In my impression, it's not so much what happens to you, it's how you react to it. What do you think on that?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I would say a mindset's kind of a generic term. I would go a little bit further and say it's more like a philosophy you have on life, and business and relationships. I think it's your personal philosophies. I think everybody has personal philosophies, and that is what's going to dictate your mindset, right? So like your core beliefs, do you believe that family comes first? Is that a deep part of your philosophy? If it's not, then I think that will kind of change how your mindset develops and how you react to certain things. Like if you have a situation and you really care about your family, but you know that this deal is going to take away a lot of time from your family, you're just not going to take it, right? So I think that it's important to understand more of the deeper like philosophy that you have, and not just like, because sometimes I think mindset gets confused with like motivation or discipline, and like it's
a very open word.
It's a very open word,
Yeah.
but I think if you go a little deeper, you find philosophy is underneath there. Like, what is your core philosophy? Like, what are your values? What is
values being a good word?
What drives you to do the things you're doing, and what are your non-negotiables? Like, what are the things that you will not change, right? Or sacrifice? Like some people, it's certain things, with time or time with family.
Even Tony Robbins talking about like the standard that you hold to yourself.
Yeah.
Have you heard him say that?
Yeah.
He's like physically, financially, where do you hold yourself? If you hold yourself to a minimum of $100,000 a year, you'll always make $100,000 a year. But you need to raise your standards to make more money. Or if your blueprint is to be no more than 15% body fat, and you hold yourself to that standard, you got to raise that standard to get lower, to get in better shape. So that's kind of fits into it too, doesn't it?
Totally. Well, and like your standards are also kind of like an inverse of like what you will tolerate in your life, right?
100%. And that's exactly what it is. Exactly.
So, and what I mean by that is some people like don't, like deep inside, they can't picture themselves or feel like they deserve, this other life. You always wonder, like, dude, you're so smart. Why are you only like, struggling, at the job you're at? You could do so many things in this world, right? You see people like, you're like, this guy could do anything, but he just chooses to be there and he's still unhappy about it. If he was happy about it, it'd be different, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If he was enjoying his life, that's different. But you can tell when certain people they're like, there's this kind of, dissonance inside them or unbalance. And I think it's simply like they have a hard time feeling like they deserve certain things.
Who's the insurance guy that you look up to, that you like? The big insurance guy. He's an immigrant. He's all over YouTube. Do you remember who he is? The dark guy, shaved head.
No, I can't remember.
I literally watched a video of him yesterday, and he was talking about lying to yourself. And I want to see what you think about this. He's like, tell a lie to yourself, like, hey, I'm going to make $1 million this year. Like, he goes, continually lie to yourself and push yourself out of your comfort zone until it becomes comfortable. Yeah. What do you think about that philosophy?
I do. I agree with that. And I think because what that starts to do is it starts to challenge your philosophy of yourself, right?
That's kind of what he's saying.
Yeah,
it makes you uncomfortable until you become comfortable with it.
Like the question is, when you were maybe a little bit younger, did you, and both of us didn't grow up with a lot of money. So like for me, I'll just give you an example for me. Whenever I was around like a hotel that was really expensive, if I walked in there, I felt uncomfortable. I didn't feel like, like this is like where I would stay. I would just kind of look in there and go like, wow, this is amazing.
I'm not worthy.
I never felt, felt worthy, right? So that's a real good indicator of like your philosophy. Like if you don't feel like that's normal, well, why isn't it? Like it's totally like, the guy working the counter isn't any different than the guy working the counter at a Holiday Inn. Like, like all the stuff, everything's the same. It's nicer. It's more beautiful. Maybe it's better run and maybe it's in a better location. All those things are true. But does it mean that you're not worthy of it or you don't deserve it?
Rico, who I had on, he's like, why not me?
Yeah.
He's a very successful business entrepreneur. Yeah. He's like, why not me? Same type of upbringing as like maybe even worse than what you're talking about. And he's like, why not me? Why not me? Always questioning always questioning it.
You should, and that's questioning your philosophy, really.
Mm.
It's not really, it has nothing to do with the world around you. It's more like the world inside you, right? You're just kind of trying to figure out, like, what is really going on? Why do I, you're just challenging yourself.
Yeah,
and I
absolutely.
think that's great. I mean, just go into a nice hotel, go to a nice restaurant, like just experience it, and then really, instead of just trying to feel uncomfortable there and focus on the uncomfort, try to ask yourself, like, why do I feel uncomfortable? Like, why is this even
That's
a thing?
self-awareness, right? Yeah. Dan, you know who Dan Panner is?
Dan Panner, no.
You should check him out. He's like this old school, he's probably 70s, he's like this old school badass businessman, but he's so raw and real.
Yeah.
And he's like, if you want to become, there's two things he says. He goes, show me your friends, I'll show you your future.
Yeah.
And then he goes, if you want to become successful, you want to have nice things, go to the BMW dealership, go look at nice houses, surround yourself with that stuff outside your comfort zone. So therefore you know what I mean? It's pretty much what we're getting at.
Yeah, it's get a little bit
And how often do we do that? I never do that. I know I probably should.
Yeah, you should.
And it seems like you're doing it more than I am.
I definitely do it, and sometimes I intentionally do it. Like, for example, I signed up to sell life insurance, right? And that was one of those things where, like, I saw the group that was doing it, and the idea of it kind of felt like, ooh, like, I don't know if I'd want to do that. Like, that looks kind of uncomfortable. And that's when I knew. I was like, why do I feel like that would be uncomfortable?
Push
like,
into
what's
it,
the big deal? Like, right, I'm going to make calls on and so that right there was my indicator. And then I kind of was like, I'm going to check into this a little more. And I looked into it, and it's a company that was, that Bradley and Andy Elliott are putting together, and they're both top sales guys. They have really great training programs. I mean, those guys are traveling around talking to people and helping people make lots of money, and so I thought, who better than to, instead of just some random State Farm, like, these guys are going to really show you how to do it, right?
People you admire, look up to.
Totally.
People living the life that you want to
live.
live.
So who do you want to be around? Guys that really stretch you and challenge you, or the other? So I thought, these guys make me feel a little bit uncomfortable about doing this, and so that's why I was like, I need to go and stretch. And,
I like that.
Yeah, and jump in. And
I heard something recently, like, if you feel uncomfortable, push into it.
Yeah, lean into it.
Yeah, lean into it's probably a better word. Like,
totally.
Do things that make you uncomfortable and then lean into it so you adapt and you grow.
Yeah, and I think, like, there's two philosophies as far as, like, as you move through life and you start to grow, right, and start to develop your mindset and strengthen your mindset, right, because all these things are just challenging your philosophy and getting all that stuff together. All that kind of encompasses your mindset, right? Like, when you wake up in the morning, do you feel like working out? Probably not. But if you've developed the mindset and your philosophies underneath are like, well, you're going to do it anyways, you just go and do it.
And then that standard you hold for yourself at the same time.
Totally.
It all kind of works together, doesn't it?
Totally. Because, when you get to a certain weight, you're probably like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm done. And then all of a sudden you're at the gym every day. Like, you have your standards, right? You have the way you look at yourself and what you're okay with. And
like, for example, I had my body fat done the other day, and I was higher than I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not comfortable with that. I want to change that. Therefore, I raised my standard. Woke up this morning, and I'm the lightest I've been. I can't remember the last time I was this light. So I raised my standard. I adapted to it. I made change, and therefore, it's happening.
Yeah.
And that's just one small example.
That's one small example, because you could look at your bank account and do the same thing.
I was going to say, even business lately, I've been kind of just going through the motions, not pushing as hard. And it's like, I'm not comfortable with this. I want more money so I can do more things with it, AKA the podcast. Raised my standard, pushed harder. All of a sudden, I'm getting more leads than I know what to do with because I put the effort in.
Yeah.
That's all it is, right? What you put in is what you get out.
So you can think of your mindset almost like a seed or a plant that you're growing. You got to water it. You got to take care of it.
And reading is probably the best thing you can do for it.
Reading gives you a better understanding of how to water it and how to, move the soil and how to take care of it, how much light, right? It gives you all those tactical things and
tactical tools
and stuff, right?
And also, like, learning from other people's experiences, knowing that other people have failed, knowing it's okay to fail. Knowing how to react to something, how to adapt to something, knowing it's okay. If you start a business here, you're pivoting constantly.
Yeah.
And only somebody who works for himself is ever going to know that. If you clock in, clock out, you get a regular job, you never really know that there's a whole 24/7 stress thing going on the other side, right?
Yeah.
And it's that mindset comes from adversity. Like, failing and growth and adaptation and That's what makes you stronger.
Yeah, that's what makes you more confident too, because then you realize, like, you know what, I can get through this, I can fall and I can get back up, and then I can do it again and figure it out better.
Yeah, are you too worried about much things anymore because you've been through? Like, well, obviously you are, but
of course, yeah, it's
you got such a stronger mindset.
Yeah, but now I just do it anyways, right? That's the difference.
Because you know you're going to be okay.
Yeah, because
you know you're going to figure it out.
At the end of the day, like, I'm not, it's not, most things won't kill me, right? So that's really what I kind of come down to. I always know, and me and my wife talk about this too. Like, I always know, no matter what happens, if it's just her and I and the kids, and we have to like live in a trailer, we would be fine with that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're not.
You got each other.
Yeah, we got each other. Like, we'll just figure it out and be happy. And like, life is. There's so many ways to be happy. If and I think some people fall into the trap of just kind of putting it all on one thing. And again, that's their philosophy, right? They start to create this philosophy of like, well, this is the only thing. And then you create an identity through that, and then your mindset gets kind of pushed in there, or whatever it might be. And
something I learned a while ago, and it's probably one of the most priceless things I've learned, is A to B. You can go the crazy, stressed out, oh my God, the world's coming to an end type mentality, or go with the flow and figure it out. Mm-hmm. And what I realized is you're going to be there anyway. It's coming. It's inevitable. You're going to end up in that spot. Which path do you choose to go?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I've been that path where I was stressed out. I've told everybody I couldn't sleep. And now I just go with the flow and I figure out it's going to end up the same anyway.
Yes. I have another way of looking at that.
Yeah, I'd like to hear this.
My way, because it's exactly what you're saying. But the way I look at it is like, you can go through life and we're all going to learn the same lessons. Either you're going to do them unconsciously and it's going to take you longer with a lot more fear and a lot more unhappiness, or you're going to do it with like awareness of yourself, like, I guess, mindfully, if you want to use that word. If you do it mindfully, you'll do all that just faster, and you won't have to, you'll enjoy a lot more. Because we're all going through the same process.
So understanding that you are going through it, and
everybody is. Even if you're working that same job, you wake up every morning, you still wonder, you have that feeling that whatever it is that you got going on, if you're not happy, right, then you're gonna feel that every day. And that's an indicator of if you're not aware, questioning that stuff, then you're going to just keep doing it. Eventually it's going to get so bad that you're going to probably either get fired or you're going to quit, or something's going to happen, right? That's going to force you to learn the lesson that you need to learn. The thing is you can do it much faster by just saying, hey, I'm just not happy. Like, how do I fix this? Where do I go? And then you start questioning, and all of a sudden you start finding answers, and then maybe you start a side hustle, or maybe you just switch jobs. Or, you know what I mean? Or start a new career, or go back to school, or whatever it is you want to do, like whatever you start to feel like is drawing you to it.
It's like kind of I always like to look like stepping back and overseeing, right? You get so caught up in the grind and doing the same thing. Sometimes it's not, I've been doing that a lot lately. It's just stepping back and looking at my life and what am I happy with? What am I unhappy with? What do I want to change? Why do I want to change it? How can I change it? Do I need to change my surroundings? Do I need to start something new? It's interesting, right?
It is interesting.
Most of us don't really take that time to stop and reflect.
I know, and I've been trying to do it more often.
Yeah, I know you've been doing it too.
Yeah, I've been trying to just kind of weekly and monthly, just kind of like, where am I at? Where was I at last week? How did I feel? What was I trying to get done?
And understanding that you can do that.
Yeah.
I don't think even people realize, you do have permission to step back and analyze your life.
Well, then you start to it's strange because you start to see yourself as a separate kind of entity, and you start to actually get to know yourself better, and then you feel just closer to yourself. You're like,
and the older you get, you realize time goes pretty quick.
Yeah.
I can't believe I was at school 25 years ago.
Yeah.
That's nuts. And my parents always just say it goes quick. And I was like, oh, whatever. It goes really quick. It's quite scary. I'm just very glad I've got my health on my side.
Yep.
But into my health and I was where I'm at now, I'd be like, oh, this is very uncomfortable.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, if you ask anybody, would you want to have $1 million right now? Or, but the caveat would be you'd be dead tomorrow, right? Or you can have no money for the rest of your life, but you'd have a whole life and you'd live up to, 100. What would most people choose?
I literally just read a book. It's like How to Get Rich. And the title sounds kind of douchey, but the book was amazing. This English guy, one of the richest guys coming out of England, He said he would trade every dollar he had plus every dollar he'd make in the next life if he could get his youth back.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Yeah.
Full stop. And I was like, what does that tell you?
Yeah.
So yeah,
don't waste it. Like, go ride the surfboard. Take your one wheel out. Like, do those things.
Money's one thing, but doing what you love is so important at the same time. And I love this book because he was like, not everybody wants to be rich.
Yeah.
If you really, really, really want to be successful, you're giving up a lot of things. It's affecting your family, it's affecting your relationship, it's affecting your health. It's very hard to balance all of it. And he's like, it's okay to be number two. You don't have to make millions and millions of dollars. He was just very real about it. And I respected that and I appreciated that. And it's probably a book you might want to check out.
Yeah, Gary Vee talks about that too, and I agree with him.
Yeah, he talks about it all the time, doesn't he?
Not everybody, that's not really what it's all about, And, that brings me to that book. Again, we talked about it a while ago, that The Alchemist, where that's kind of the sort of moral of the story is you can tell when someone's living they call their personal legend in the story, because they're like their energy and they're vibrant and they're just like, they're happy. And I'm sure you've met like a guy that owns a bakery that's like that. He's just like, oh my God, he's like literally living his purpose. Like he loves it. He's so happy, right? And joyful. And I mean, he owns a bakery. Like, how much really could he be making, right? When you think about that. And he's working a lot, but he probably loves it every moment he's in there. He's happy.
That's priceless.
And he's happy. And then there's guys who are like making way more money that just are so unhappy, right? So it's really just like, man.
Self-awareness.
Yeah.
What do you think some of the biggest things as far as, like you and I got a very similar mindset, very strong mindset. What are some of the mistakes, the lessons you've learned to get to that?
That there's a lot of different ways to get to where you're trying to go. And, I learned not to fall into like a dogma, like a good way to describe it is there's that whole like, save, if you want this next life, don't spend, don't do this, don't buy that car, right? Like there's that.
Or even that coffee,
right? Which I agree with. But then there's like the other side of it. Like there's the guys who like, they'll just go and buy the Porsche and then they'll figure out how to do it because then they've got a fire of like, well, I got to figure this out, right? So like, I feel like that's where self-awareness comes in. Can you be that guy? Do you need to like burn the boats to just go all in?
Yeah, gotcha.
Or do you need to like kind of like scale it, like little by little,
baby steps there.
Yeah, baby step into it, because you need to ask yourself those questions. And it's important because you have to really kind of go, am I scared? Am I too scared? Is that why I'm trying to scale up? Do I not believe in myself enough? Or, do I believe in myself too much, right? Like you kind of have to
That's interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like there's so many ways to go about it. And I don't think one's right or wrong. I really don't.
Love that. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
And you've also got the people who like watching gas prices, don't go out and buy that $5 coffee.
Sure.
Save.
Yeah.
And then you got the people who say the other ways, if you want to buy a $5 coffee or never worry about gas prices, focus on making more money.
Yep.
And what I realized is I don't care about the small things because I'm more focused on the big things.
Yeah.
If I save $5 a day on coffee, like what might be $1,000 in a year.
Yeah.
I'd rather figure out a way to make an extra $100,000. So I don't look at gas price. I know gas prices are high right now, but I don't sweat it.
I know I haven't looked at them either.
I'm not picking up coupons, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with people who do that.
No, not at all.
But for me, I'm not worried about the small end. I'm worried about the big end.
Yeah.
And I still live below my means, but I'm trying to make as much money as I can so that middle gap is mine.
Yep.
And that's, I couldn't imagine
conversations
like,
that
nickel and diming, right?
Yeah, and these are conversations I have with my wife too. Like we both grew up kind of, on the poor side, and so like, your first instinct and her first instinct sometimes is like, oh, we don't have money for that. And my first instinct now, because over time I've worked on
just
it.
breaking that.
Now I'm like, well, how do we get that? Like, how do we afford that?
Well, that's what Robert Kiyosaki says. Like, rather than I can't afford that, how can I afford that?
How can I afford that?
He says that all the time.
Yeah. Like, okay, well, if I buy this property and and it can cash flow me $1,000 a month, well, there you go. You can now own a car that costs $1,000 a month, forever, right? Basically.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the idea, is how do you do that?
I like that. And one of the big things with mindset, it's okay to fail.
Yeah.
I think schooling and not asking, questioning everything. When we go to school, we get told what we get told, and we never ask questions. We're not really encouraged to ask questions. And why is it this way? Whatever you're told is fact. And what I've learned is to question everything, ask questions, find out why it is, and then also realizing that it's okay to fail. It's okay to make mistakes.
It is.
Failing's only failing when you give up. You learn more by failing than you do if everything goes well.
And I would say that school actually instills a sense of fear of failure, right? Because it's all about passing or failing.
Yeah, it's fit into society.
If you fail, it's negative.
Yeah,
you don't like grow from from the failure of a test. Your GPA falls.
Yeah, everyone just looks down at you.
Yeah, like
yeah.
And you usually can't just go back and take another test to make it better, right? You go to the next test and the next topic, and then you hope you do better there. And it's like, well, you aren't encouraged to fail, So creative people, entrepreneurs, musicians, artists, all those kinds of things, which are really important. Those guys are the ones who end up being engineers and stuff like that, because you got to be kind of creative to invent stuff and to create stuff, right?
Think outside the box, ask questions.
Totally.
Why is it this way? Why has it always been this way? Why can't it be this way?
And if all those teachers were right through time and through history, like, how many teachers, were actually did anything amazing? Like, I'm just not downing on teachers.
No,
but I'm being honest.
100% agree.
Yeah, like all those teachers, guess what they were? They never became teachers, the guys who ended up doing stuff.
Yeah, and I guess teachers are probably the people who did good on grades and were good at school. And someone who's making 30 to 60 grand a year telling you, dictating you and limiting your limitations, that's not the right person.
Yeah, I think
I want someone like you. Hey, you can do anything you want.
Yeah. But nowadays, because of social media, I think it's cool that all these guys have gotten to a point where, maybe they're successful enough where they have so much time now that that's what they want to do. They just want to give back. Now they've become teachers, right? Through the process, which is awesome. And I would say there are some good teachers out there. I do. I think maybe like 1% of them out there are probably pretty good. Because we've all experienced at least one teacher that was like, they had an influence on your life, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You could tell, like, if you were around them more, they would have probably pumped you up and they would have made, helped you kind of get to the next level, right? They were good teachers. So I think that's important too. I wish we had better teachers.
All right. So mindset being pretty much everything, right? And I know you don't like the word mindset.
It's just big,
the way you think and approach and react to things.
Totally. And like, look at mindset as like the packaging to everything that's really inside this book. It's like the cover, right?
Yeah.
Mindset is a good cover for a book, but there's going to be a whole bunch of chapters inside there to really kind of explain what that means.
And just through experience, through failure, through reading, through discipline, you're constantly battering. You're constantly making it's like a muscle, right? You're making it stronger. Yeah.
Yeah. I was listening to Jim Rohn, and he just has a funny example of that. Humans are the only thing that doesn't always grow to their full potential. We're the only ones. Trees grow as big as they can grow.
I gotcha.
Right? Their roots go down as low as they can. They grow as tall as they can. They never just kind of grow. They grow as much as they can, however much sun they can get and water they can get. They will grow as much as they can. Right? Plants, flowers, all the animals, they do the most they can do. Right? Only humans, because we have a choice, tend to fall into just being uncomfortable or being, we want to be comfortable all the time. So instead of being uncomfortable, we don't stretch and grow. We just kind of hang out oh, well, this is good enough because I don't want to, I can't be more rich than my parents, or my mom wants me to be this, and
money's bad.
Or money's bad, or I can't be in that good a shape. Look at the rest of my family. Look at where I come from, right?
Or what are people gonna think of me?
But instead of just trying to be as big as as best they can and grow to their full potential,
that's interesting.
We don't. It's the strangest thing. And I think we all have little things like that where we're like, wow, am I growing as much as I can? Probably not, but I think some of us are trying.
There's a video I saw on TikTok a couple of days ago, and it was talked about people who want to get really rich. And he goes, once you get to a certain level and you're comfortable and you got a roof over your head and you got a nice car outside, you got a family, what's going to make you push to get further?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you make 100 grand a year and you own a house, you got a car, you got a family, like, do I really want to put in the extra time? Do I really want to start working twice as much? Do I want to work twice as hard? And I'm sure, can you relate to that? Like, you get to a point where you're like,
yeah,
okay.
I think that would be like the diminishing returns, right? I think that's with anything though. Like if you travel a lot, the first few places you visit is like amazing, and then the next 6 is probably pretty cool, right? And then like the next like 6 after that is probably like, yeah, it wasn't bad. And then little by little, you start to feel not so
fulfilled, or
well, it's not as exciting as it was the first few, right?
It's the same as restaurants and food, and
and it's the same with money, right? Like if you go from making $5,000 a month to $10,000 a month, you're gonna be like, this is awesome, right? If you go from making $10,000 a month to go like $25,000 a month, you're gonna be like, this is really, we can do pretty much whatever we want, right? At this point, like you can try not everything you want, but you can. The lifestyle stuff you can do. You can go travel. You can stay at nice places. You can do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Right. If you go from $25,000 to $50,000 a month, now your things might get nicer, but the lifestyle didn't get that much greater. Right.
That makes me think of the difference between. I think once you start making $70,000 a year, from that upwards, there's no significant difference in your life.
Yeah.
Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you're getting at, right?
There's a lot of studies on that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of what you're getting at, isn't it?
Exactly what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
It's like it starts to diminish, right? If you're making $1 million a month, it's like, does that feel any different than making $500,000 a month?
Yeah, or even potentially like 25.
I mean, you can buy a Ferrari Enzo anytime. You can buy pretty much any car you want anytime. Is it going to really change? Not really.
That's a very interesting point. If you really put yourself in their shoes, like, yeah, I'm just getting a little bit nicer clothes, a little bit bigger house, a little bit of a nicer car, but do I really need it?
Yeah.
Is that really going to make me happier?
Like, you still can go get coffee in Nirvana. You're still buying whatever clothes you want. You're going wherever you want, whenever, as long as you have the time. Now, that's the other thing, right?
You just got a bigger number in your bank account.
You just have a bigger number in your bank account, but it's not changing you.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it starts to diminish.
So how do you figure out what that right number is? I guess that's a balance between the hours you're putting in, your family time, if you're enjoying your work. You got to figure out that balance, wouldn't you?
100%.
You think that's the answer to that?
That's where it comes to. Do you feel unsatisfied still with the amount of money you make? Maybe you got to ask yourself some bigger questions, right?
Yeah. Like, why is this so important to me?
Yes. Why do I feel like I need more money? Like, why?
What do you think the answer? What do you think that? Like for you personally, where do you think that is? Like, do you have a financial thing? Do you have more? Like, how do you figure that out for yourself?
Right now, in this current state, because I feel like as we evolve and grow, like sometimes we look back and we're like, I sound kind of silly, but at this point, I just want to go as far as I can. Okay. And
just for you,
just for me,
just because you got on this, like what you're capable of.
Yes. Until I feel like maybe it's taking too much time, or I want more time for something else, or for right now, I'm just gonna kind of let's see how far we can push it and go and grow.
But it's not for the money necessarily, is it?
It's more for me.
It's the personal challenge.
Yeah, because I want to. I know that I have to become somebody different to get to the every next level. If you want to go from making $5,000 a month to making $10,000 a month, I have to become a different person, right?
Absolutely.
So going from 10,000 to 20, I have to become a different person again, and that doesn't mean I have to put on a mask and become a fake person, but I actually have to internally become a different person.
The way you think, the way you talk,
the way I look,
who you network
who I'm
with.
around, and what I'm doing, and
100%.
what my day-to-day is like not pretending to be somebody else. I actually have to be somebody else.
You have to become that person.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think the real fun part about it is becoming all those people while still being true to my values, right? And to who I am. That's the really important part, because what's the point of going through all these stages of becoming these new people if you don't stick to your values? Because then you're going to look back, right? And then you're just going to feel like that's where that unsatisfied feeling starts to come in, I think. And that's where I feel like depression starts to creep in for some people, because they sacrifice something along the way because they were trying to become the next person, right? To grow their net worth or whatever. But they sacrifice some values in there somewhere, and that will always stay with them forever. It'll change you.
Gotcha. It's funny you say that. I would never want to make money or become successful selling cigarettes or doing something that I didn't morally stand for.
Yes.
And anytime I've worked for myself, it's always something I'm very, very passionate about, like personal training or like videography, whatever it is. Something that adds value that I'm passionate about that helps others.
Yeah.
I would never want to make money pulling from someone else or doing something that I don't value. It's not in my DNA.
Yep. Well, sometimes it just creeps in, like here and there, right? For some people, I think it's
got to be hard, right?
It is. And I think we all have had moments like that. I don't think anybody's perfect. I think we all are capable of everything, right? Like, I think that we all have the seeds inside our garden to be evil, to be this, to be selfish. Like, we all have it in certain ways, right? I think it just depends on, like, what do we decide to water in ourselves, right? And little by little, like, what we water and what we decide not to water is what grows.
That's interesting. What about this? You got a restaurant, you're selling healthy food, and then your competition's undercutting you. They're not doing real food, and you get to a point where, hey, I'm going to have to start sacrificing value, sacrificing food to compete. I feel like that's a tricky one because you want to be this person, but is your business going to stay alive if you stick to what you started with? You know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're getting at.
I feel like that's a tricky one.
Yeah, and those are those moments, right? You kind of have to like figure that stuff out, and really, what is it important? Is the mission important, or is the money important?
Right. It's got to be hard though, right?
But I think when you start to clarify it, you go, okay, the mission's more important, right? And then you stick with it. And then I also think there's the other side, right? If you have a business and you're doing it for 3 years, right? And after 3 years, it's just not making any money at all. It's not, it's just kind of like you're barely just kind of making it. You're just grinding it away. Maybe it's time to like move on. Like 3 years, it should start making money. And if it doesn't,
Mr. Wonderful says that, right? If a business,
does it? Yeah.
Well,
that was how I felt because these are talks we had when I had Vegas Rally. I was like, man, if in 3 years, I just committed to it, right? In 3 years, I'm sticking with this for 3 years. If it doesn't start making money, then.
He says, if a business isn't making money after 2 to 3 years, it's a hobby, and you need to take it out the back of the barn and shoot it. And you can imagine him saying that.
100%. Right? I agree with that.
So it's pretty real.
Let it go, man. Like at that point, because then it's diminishing returns on you too, because you probably learned so much in that 3 years, right? But if it's not making money and producing for you, then you can't like grow and like. Eventually hire someone to move yourself out of the business and then go start your next thing, then you're not going to be growing either. So it's time to just kind of like let that go.
Absolutely. And a big reason why I started this podcast was I'm like, I want to be around more successful people. I want to have better conversations. I want my network to grow. And having these conversations and having these guests on, every single person I talk to has so much value. They're doing so well. They got similar mindsets. For the most part, I would say most of them are doing better than I am. So it's the perfect thing for me. Yeah. My mind is like so much more. It's thinking so differently. It's questioning everything. It's growing. I'm reading different books. So it's very important to figure out how do I become the person I want to be, and what steps can I do to create that environment to become that person. And this, for me, this is the perfect place to become the person I'm trying to be.
Yeah, I think it's awesome, man. I think, it's like, for me, I've even just written down like, what do I want to drive? What do I want it to look like? What do I want my day to be like? Like really going really far and being really detailed about what you want, because it'll really help clarify some of the choices, right? Like there's always going to be opportunities. That's the thing. There's like millions of opportunities. Whenever someone's like, oh my God, this needs to happen right now, and I'm like, yeah, relax. Like there's always another deal. There's always another possibility. There's always.
Or even that mindset is not to hesitate and to jump in, which I've heard plenty of times.
When you have opportunity, yes. But if you, for some reason, let's say you just made the decision to put your money over here and this opportunity comes up, if you can figure out a way to make it happen, great. But if you can't, you got to,
Something I want to touch on too is, I'm not sure if you and I discussed this, but Richard Branson, before he started Virgin Airlines, do you know why he started it?
I don't actually, but I've read a couple of his books.
I'm surprised you haven't come across it. So he's very big on,
remember the story.
Rather than complaining, listen to someone's complaint, which is just a complete it's like a mindset shift, isn't it? everyone's complaining, everyone's pointing the finger, everyone's making excuses. But if you actually stop and listen to someone's complaint and you solve that complaint, there's a huge potential there.
Yeah.
And it might be a silly idea, it might be whatever it is. What happened to him is he had a flight and the flight got canceled.
Mm-hmm.
He had a flight, he was supposed to go meet a girl, it got canceled. Everyone's complaining, oh, my flight's canceled, blah, blah, blah. He goes out and charters a plane. He sells the tickets to all the passengers. He gets to his date. The next day he rings up Boeing and he gets a plane on, I don't know, somehow he gets a plane that he's got 12 months to pay off.
Yeah.
Virgin Airlines has started from that.
Yeah.
Nuts, right?
That's awesome.
So crazy. He go to like, oh damn, he couldn't make my date, blah, blah, blah. The airlines suck. He's like, stops, thinks outside the box, listens to the complaint, solves the complaint, starts I don't know what the company's worth. It's got to be $1 billion company now.
Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, it's got to be more than that.
That's just one example of thinking differently, having a different mindset.
Yeah, that was Virgin Atlantic, and then they have Virgin Australia, I think.
Yeah,
they have they had Virgin America, which I was just talking about yesterday. Actually, I was like, I miss Virgin America. That was the best airline to fly in the US.
I didn't know they had that.
Yeah, it was the best.
But what just a different way of looking at things. How often do you hear someone complain about stuff? Like I never complain. That's one thing I'm 100%. How to win friends and influence people, don't criticize, condemn, or complain.
Yeah.
Ever since I read that, I stopped complaining. My life got significantly better. The only people want to listen to you complain, mortician or your doctor.
Yeah.
And once you understand that and you start listening to other people's complaints, you're like, hey, there's a business, there's an opportunity. Like with what I do for a living, hey, I don't know how to post on social media, I haven't got any content, blah, blah, blah. I solved that complaint, therefore I have a business. I could be trying to do it a different way, but I pivoted because I saw a niche.
Yep.
So can you think of any examples that you think of someone complaining, a business is being created out of it?
I mean, everything in the service industry
pretty much
was
everything,
a problem
right?
At some point. Yeah. I mean, there's
Uber being a huge one, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Airbnb being a huge one.
Yep.
These are problems that people had forever.
Yeah.
And they're being
not
solved.
being able to find places to stay, like you would have
getting somewhere on a damn taxi.
Yeah. And I mean, with Airbnb, that was a big one for, because I have properties and stuff, but I mean, before, I remember, trying to find a place, like you would see people staying in these cool houses. You're like, how do we even find that place? And it's some random, vacation rental place that has like 10 properties that you don't even know where they are or how to find them, that have no marketing or anything, right? They're just kind of exclusive to whatever little group, which was fine. But now you can just go and search a map and find them all over the place. And like, it really solved a lot of problems for people. It gave a lot,
It's amazing, right?
Yeah, it's awesome. So
yeah, just different way of thinking.
Yeah,
thinking outside the box, having a different mindset.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to touch on before we finish up?
No, we can. With mindset, no,
just realizing that failing's only failing when you give up. Reading, learning from other people, and just don't complain.
Yeah, start with your philosophy on how you just look at life in general. If it's positive, you probably got at least a chance. If it's negative, you don't have a chance.
No. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. I want to hear your opinion of how you change your mindset, things that have adapted for you, books you've read, things that have like really helped you grow.